everybody. My name is Ben Finkley, and you're in the HR and Recruiting to Get Naked session. I think at the next Drupal camp I do, I'll write a session on how to not write creative names for your session because it scares people away. In any case, we're going to spend the next probably, I would say 30 to 40 minutes talking about Glenn and I. This is Glenn Hilton with ImageX Media. Talking about some of the experiences that we've had in our companies around HR and recruiting, and addressing some of the issues that that a lot of people are experiencing in the Drupal community, and some of the lessons that we've learned and things that we've implemented to try and address some of those. Now, the reason I call it Getting Naked or It's Time to Get Naked is because there's a really great book out there by Patrick Lencioni called Getting Naked, and the idea behind this book, it's a really great business book, is that until you let down your barriers and the things that you're hiding about, I'm really good at everything, but then over here you've got some stuff you're not. Until you let those barriers down, until we let those barriers down with each other in the community, there's always going to be issues that we can't really fully address. And so what I was hoping to do today was to share my failings as a CEO, some of the things that I've done wrong in our HR process, and then share with you what we did to overcome those things. And then hopefully we will have lots of time to open it up, to let other people in the audience share about some of the things that you guys have tried. But very much we want this to be an interactive session, and so if there's something that we're talking about that you have something to add, please don't wait to the end. Jump in, and if we get through 3 slides and we have a good discussion, then I consider it a very successful panel. So, well, three of my slides and then 3 of Glenn's too. So all right. I talk to a lot of CEOs in the Drupal community, and I hear a lot of complaining about some particular issues again and again and again around talent, and they all sound something along these lines. There's a lot of work to be done, and I can't find people to hire to do that work. The big companies are hiring up loads of talent, and so there's nothing left for me. I can get really great people, but then they get poached. Headhunters come along and offer them huge salaries, and then they move on. Or I can go hire an entry-level PHP guy out of college, or somebody from the WordPress camp, and train them up on how to do Drupal, and then they're gone in 12 months, right? Now they're marketable in the Drupal community, and there's huge demand, and they leave. So I've invested all this effort for nothing. Has anybody heard anybody complaining about any of these things before? Okay, I see quite a few hands. Are there other things along these lines that you're seeing out there? Finding good ones. Sure. So Glenn's got a slide that talks about their interview process that I think you should go through. You should talk about. I thought you just hit it. This is an opportunity to redeem the slide, Glenn. Moonlighting. Talk about that. Why is that a bad thing? There's more money. So they work for you, and they go work for themselves. And then they're very sleepy when they come in the next morning to work for you, right? Yeah, that's a problem. What else? What other issues are you hearing or addressing? Yeah. Time zones, deliverables, working with distributed teams. Yeah, those are all very important issues. Yes, sir. Okay. There's a term for that. I'll think of it. But low talent pool, low pool of applicants.
Why do you think that is? In our case, we moved the HR system and they've all those studies. And sometimes it doesn't work on various browsers. It's hard to find the job posting. Other times, really good jobs.
Yeah, that's a problem. Yeah, I think we need to cover that slide. Like right before. Let's cut that one. That'll save us 5 minutes. Anything else? Okay, good. So there's lots. In other words, there's lots of issues. So let's talk about some of them. Just wanted to fact check real quick with you. We can't change what the elephants are doing. We can't change the landscape that's out there in the industry that we're in and the environment that we're in the Drupal community. As individuals, we can't just complain and it's going to get better, right? But what's true is I can do better, right? I can do better in my company. I can make my company better, and I can solve these problems myself, right? So the idea here is what can we share with each other where we can all get better at doing this? So this is my one theory slide, and I'll get to some practical stuff, but why I have a problem. What got me here as a business owner was I had a good idea one day, and I was willing to work 100 hours a week to get it done. I would do anything for anybody. I believe that that we can't fail. Veloci can't fail, and so if you don't think you can fail, then you don't quit, right? No matter what the obstacle, and that I can keep a very, very, very low expense base, right? And those were the things that got me to the position that I'm in now, or say I was in 18 months ago. But what I need now is a vision for my company and a mission to get us there, right? I've got to define our processes and create KPIs, key performance indicators for my team, measurements of how we're performing and how we're getting things done. I need a strategy. I need a niche that I can target. I've got to have better planning. I've got to think about quarterly planning and monthly planning and weekly planning and daily planning and annual. I mean, I can't even think out a year, right? But I'm supposed to do annual planning. And then this financial acumen that you're just automatically supposed to have when you own a company, right? And those are the things that I need right now. And the problem is, if I don't solve those problems, I'm always going to have a really hard time getting people to be interested in joining my company and getting them to stick with me. If I can't cast a vision for where we're going and that it's exciting and this is something you want to be part of, I can't get them by going, oh, come work for me. I have a really great idea and you're going to work 100 hours a week. They're not going to want to join, right? Unless they really, really believe. And even then, it only lasts for a certain amount of time. So if you've seen me present before, I love to read business books. And so I went and did a lot of reading and a lot of research. And how many of you have heard of the E-Myth? Probably one of the most foundational books in building a good small business. And it gives you a blueprint for how business should operate, right? The idea here really is that until you can get your team to be as good at what you do as you are, your company can't grow beyond what you're capable of doing, right? Creating processes and that kind of thing it has some practical aspects to it, but I see it really more as a theoretical book. And then just in the last 6 months or so, I discovered this book, Mastering the Rockefeller Habits. And I would say it is the most practical, tactical book that I've ever read on building a successful business, down to here's forms that you can use, here's spreadsheets that you can use, here's a step-by-step instruction for getting this thing done. Very, very tactical, and it's short. It's a very easy read, but very powerful ideas in that book. Basically, the guy studied John D. Rockefeller, one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the history of the world, and created a list of things that small businesses can emulate Rockefeller. So some suggestions there for you. So when I went about creating Veloci, I wanted to create the best possible place to work. And so I read lots of magazine articles and I talked to lots of people, and I came up with, here's the things that we did and provided for our team that made Veloci this really wonderful company to be in, from 401k with matching to really great processes. We have an exciting niche, actually an intersection of two exciting niches that we're working in. Unlimited vacation time, refrigerators stocked with free food and drinks and all that kind of stuff that you want to have. Monthly reviews, weekly meetings just to talk about how great everybody's doing. And so we're doing all these things. But, and this is where I get naked a little bit, is the God's honest truth is, at the end of last year, I lost about half my staff. And I would actually suggest that I didn't lose them at the end of the year. That's just when they left, right? I actually lost them long before that, right? So what that made me do was, it was like a 2x4 to the forehead, right? It knocked me over and made me realize, wow, I can't just provide a laundry list of features and benefits of working for Valachi. There's got to be more to it than that. And I started asking why. Why did this happen? And I started researching, I started talking, I started asking. Because that was huge. We literally had to rebuild our team, right? So here's what I came up with. Here are the things that I was doing wrong as CEO of Valachi. I was focused more on making my customers happy than making the team happy. I thought that was a good thing, right? We're supposed to make customers happy. It is a good thing, but it's not the only thing. I listened, but I didn't respond, at least not in a timely way, right? Oh, I'll file that away, I'll get to that, we'll work on that. I didn't actually know my team very well, and I didn't engage them in the company decision-making processes. So when there's a decision to made, Ben was off in a corner, and ta-da, here's the decision, right? And it was painful. It was a painful thing for them. And so they were gone. So I started researching also on, why does it matter that I have a happy team? I'm paying them, right? Isn't that enough? So, and I'm a process-oriented guy. I've got to first decide this is a good thing, and then how do I make it happen? So I came across probably the most succinct, and I did a lot of reading, but this is probably the most succinct representation was a Gallup Management Journal Employee Engagement Index. And basically it said the happy, engaged employees are much more likely to have a positive relationship with their boss. I was like, oh, I have hardly any relationship. So that's, hey, I should maybe do that. They're better equipped to handle new challenges and changes. Well, we're in an industry that has constant challenges and changes, and we're in the niche in that industry that has constant challenges and changes. That's probably good. They feel that they're more valued by their employers. Okay, that's good. Handle stress more effectively. Anybody have stress in your business, in your job? Yeah. And they're much more satisfied with their lives. Now, how many of you have ever done a personality profile? You've ever heard of a DISC profile? So I'm the guy that's in the extreme upper right-hand corner that's extroverted and goal-oriented, right? So for me my thinking in the past has been, how fast can I get to where I'm going? And, I'll make a lot of messes on the way, and that's okay because I got to where I needed to. Why would I want to back up and muck around in relationships? That's messy, right? But what I came to realize is that the fastest way for me to get my company where it needed to be was to slow down and muck around in the relationships. And we actually move much faster because I'm not having to do everything, right? I'm bringing them along, they're bringing me along in many cases. So here's some very practical things that I did. And the other thing about me is I don't remember to do all the things. So I had to create hard and soft systems that forced Ben to slow down and take care of business, right? So number one, I needed to know my team. Number two, I needed to explain a lot more. And number three, I needed to listen a lot more and take action. Listening's good, but without taking action, it really is hollow. So here's the know my team part. Practical idea number one was I created these information. I didn't get I kind of took this idea from a company called Rackspace in San Antonio. They do a much more limited version of this, but I thought, you know what, let's just go all out. So we did assessments and we came up with this document. And the idea is I have to be emotionally invested in my team and vice versa, and I can't get emotionally invested in them unless I know them, right? If I don't know them very well, it's very hard to get very excited about that person. So we took DISC profiles. We did emotional needs assessment. And I'm sorry, actually I put emotional, I think it's relational needs assessment. And then strengths and KPIs, right? So, and then we made copies of this, and every new employee that we hire, we have one created within the first 3 or 4 days that they're on the job, and it goes up next to their desk. And so everybody can see these things, and everybody's been trained and knows what all these things mean, right? So let's take a little bit closer look at one of these information sheets. And this is the information sheet for Tim. And I didn't know he was going to be sitting in the session, but so there's Tim right there. So after this is over and you go walk up to him, you'll know exactly how to communicate with him, right? So this is, yeah, exactly. Love, comfort. So who he is and what his title is important, right? So it's on there. But also, how does he like to be addressed, right? If his name was really Timothy and he likes to be called Tim, and I'm calling him Timothy all the time, that doesn't work, right? A nice photo, because everybody likes to look at nice photos of themselves, right? Whenever you see a group photo and you're in that group photo, do you look at everybody else? No, it's a good or bad photo based on how you look in that photo. Oh, this is a terrible photo, right? Everybody likes to look at a nice photo of themselves. How should I relate to him? So the relational needs are, how does this person... yes.
I don't know if you guys have distributed teams.
Absolutely.
That's a really big issue. I mean, there's some people on my team I didn't look up for years after I hired the person. So to have that photo, like all of your distributed people, and get to see each other, even go further than that. Great idea, Zach.
And that was Facebook's for? Well, kind of. I don't use Facebook for business. I use it only for personal. But also, a lot of times people have their profile picture, and it's the one of them, hanging drunk off a boat, or whatever. So it's like, yeah, you want a professional image that you can put up there. Do what? Maybe, but for us, this worked really, really well. And maybe and you can go grab the picture from there and use it. Yeah.
Some of them are tiny little.
That's true.
You know when you're on Twitter and you get to know people and then you see them in real life?
Yeah.
That's you.
Yeah.
What happened?
Right. And and this is our company. When you walk into my company, you would see these up everywhere, right? So we took a relational needs assessment, and this is all stuff that I'm happy to share with you if you want to get in touch with me afterwards. But it basically goes through and it says, what are the things that this person needs? And we all have different emotional needs, right? And those needs change. If you gave somebody an emotional needs assessment and they've got 4 projects they're all due on Friday, their emotional needs are going to be, support and encouragement are going to be their emotional needs, right? But so the reassessment over time, but basically understanding this is how Tim likes to be related to. But then also how we communicate with Tim is very different than what his emotional needs are necessarily, right? So his DISC profile is ID, influence and dominance. So an I is an extroverted people person, right? I'm an extroverted task and goal person. So that's Tim's primary, is that he's a very people-oriented kind of guy. So if I walk in there to Tim in the morning and I say, Tim, did you get the report that I needed done? Is it on my desk? Okay, great. All right, here's the other thing I need you to do. And I walk on, Tim's going to be like, okay, but he's not going to feel real talked to, right? He's going to feel talked down to. I walk in, and my natural tendency is not, but I go walk in and say, how's the weekend? What's your family doing? That's right. I got to slow down, right? That's me though. I got to slow down, but I got to understand that, and I'm not necessarily good at remembering that, which is why this is great, because I can glance at it as I walk in the door and go, oh yeah, I need to slow down. These are for me. It helps everybody in my company, but I did all this for me, right? It helps me to be better at communicating with my team. Some fun facts about Tim, the name of his family, what teams he likes to root for, and things like that. What he's good at. So we have there's another book we use called Know Your Strengths. And in that, there's an online assessment that you can do, and it actually tells you what people are good at. So understanding what he's good at, but then also understand what is he trying to accomplish in his day-to-day work. So having defined Tim's KPIs before we hired him, we were able to put this on here and say, so I can go, I know how I should relate to him, I know how to talk to him, I know what his strengths are, I know he's trying to get done. it makes it so that I can know him much, much better. Now, does that make me emotionally invested in Tim? Not really, right? That takes relationship, and that takes time, and that takes getting to know Tim better. But it helps me to know him, and it helps start that process. Practical idea number 2 is a daily pregame huddle. The idea here is that people are happier when they know what's going on. And I need to communicate a lot better and listen a lot better to what's going on with my team. So every morning at 9 o'clock for 15 minutes, we go around and every person in my company has a moment to talk about what they did the day before, what they're going to get done today, and what's hindering their success, what's standing in the way of getting things done. It takes no more than 15 minutes, and we do it standing up, right? Every morning. Of course, everyone's busy. Everyone's busy. And these are the things that you have to make time for. But what it does, though, is it accelerates problem solving. So if you're standing in that group and this person says, well, yesterday I did this thing and then I couldn't finish it because I needed to get that, I needed to get that content that you said you were going to send me and I never got it, right? Well, right, you could dash off an email and that gets buried or whatever, but you're standing there in front of all your peers, all the people you work with in your company, and you have an issue, you can get that issue hammered out. And it's not accusatory, it's just, look, I can't get it done until you send that to me. Can you send it to me today? And if not, why not? And can I get it tomorrow or whatever it is? And you can hammer those issues out, and a lot of those issues get handled first thing in the morning. And the first several times we had this meeting, there were a lot of little issues like that. We have hardly any, maybe 1 or 2 on a morning.
We do that, Robert, and it's good because we come to a point where we're like, I just can't figure this out. Somebody else might have an idea.
Yeah, absolutely. So sharing ideas is a big part of it. And also, and I'll tell you, as strange as it is, this is the thing that I hear most often. That daily meeting really means a lot to me. It really makes it feel like I'm part of the team, and it helps me to know what's going on in the company. So if you do nothing else, this is it. And then the last idea that I have to share with you is ask my team if they're happy, and if not, do something about it. So the idea here is I don't know if they're happy or not, and even if I ask them, they don't necessarily tell me. Hey, how you doing? I'm fine. Hunky-dory. Right? And then, so have you ever heard of the Net Promoter Score? So we have 1 or 2 people that have heard of Net Promoter Score. So I'll show you what it is, but I decided to use an industry standard scoring mechanism that tells you how satisfied your customers are, and I decided to rewrite that to figure out how happy my team is, right? And so the net, it's monthly, it's anonymous, and it's 2 questions. It takes less than 5 minutes for them to respond. And then I follow it up with a group discussion, and I actually follow it up with policy changes, right? And then I track what our score is. There's a mechanism for creating your score, and one of my KPIs as the CEO of Valachi is our score improving or is our score getting worse, right? And if our score is getting worse, I've got a problem that I need to address. Here's what it looks like, and this is just a direct screenshot from our intranet. And the questions are, how likely is it that you would recommend Valachi as a great place to work? Right? That's what it comes down to. Not are you happy or how do you feel today, but would you recommend this place as somewhere that somebody that you would want them to come work here because it's a great place to work? Right? That's the bottom line. And if you don't answer 10, what is it that we need to do to move you up the scale? Right? So it's not just a single term answer. It actually gets them to think about it and go, well, what would make this place better? Once a month. Yeah, it's a good point. 10 or so. And I ask them all to do it at the same time, usually right after one of our morning meetings, so that I can't figure it out. And because I really I want somebody to be open. And if it's not anonymous, they won't necessarily be open. And if that's a concern, you don't have to do it anonymously. You could interview them. For our customers, we don't send them a survey. We actually interview them. So you could do it that way. But then when you get to a certain size, it's nice to do it anonymous so that they can be a little bit more honest with their answers. And I was going to show you some of the responses that we got, but I decided, you know what, that's not really, it's not anonymous enough, right? But we got some great responses, and we made several policy changes the first couple of months that we did this. And I'm really happy to say that our score has gone up every single month. We started doing this in April. Sure. We used to do this really cool thing called the Valachi Book Club. And we've read all these different, like Getting Naked was one of the books that we read. And so I buy a copy for everybody, and we all kind of read, half the book or whatever, and we meet about once a month over breakfast, and we discuss what we learned in the book. One of the feedback things I got was, I hate the Valachi Book Club, and I don't want to participate in it, but I feel obligated to, or I'm required to participate in it, and I don't want to do the reading, and I don't want to discuss it. And I was like, I was blown away by that, because it sounds like it's such a great idea, right, for a guy who reads business books all the time. But that's what I had to do, is I had to go, okay, the Valachi Book Club is optional. I'll announce the book, and we pick the book together, right? It's not like I was forcing books on you, but we'll pick the book. You let me know if you want to participate this go around. I'll buy you a book. If I buy you a book, you need to participate, but you can just opt out. And the happiness quotient just went way up for people. And there were several things like that we changed that were simple, easy things to change. I just didn't know it was making people unhappy. I thought people liked it, and a lot of people did, right? But some people didn't. So that's it. Now it's Glenn Hilton time.
Thank you, Ben. That was awesome. Great job. I don't have any really cool flipping slides like Ben does, but hopefully you guys will be able to watch. I don't even have any awesome team pictures with KPIs, but most of my stuff is just text here. Thanks, Tim. You're awesome. So let's escape here. That's looking positive. Okay. So there we go. Okay, so I'm a little bit more conservative than Ben. So I'm not really ready for us all to get naked at this point in time. Before I was working in this industry, I used to be a youth pastor. And so my conservative backing is coming from there. Tim, however, also was. So we kind of have an affinity there. It's good that he's here to support me. I was in the ministry for 12 years before I started business. So what I wanted to talk about today was I'd like to talk a little bit more about the retaining side, but I also like to talk about the recruiting side too, because I know, you know what? I don't think I turned it on, so let's just do that. How's that? Can you hear me? Yeah? Sweet. I'll just raise this up a little bit higher. How's that? Better? Awesome. So how many of you are business owners in here? Oh, lots of you. How many of you are in positions, like HR positions, where you are over or supervising individuals on your teams? A few of you? Yeah? Okay, great. So as I shared in the last session, which we were doing on the business panel, we were talking about kind of how we got our businesses started. And back in 2005, when we made the decision to lop off all of the extra services we had, we were kind of this one-stop shop, and we decided to go with CMS, and we chose Drupal. We optimized our SEO on our website and began link building campaigns to kind of grow our marketing. We were just overwhelmed within 6 months of how much work, and that just kept coming. And the biggest challenge we had as an organization was, how do we find good people to help us do this work? And so that was kind of where we faced our first challenges on the recruiting front. And what I found is probably in the first 3 years or so, I maybe hired 30 people, and just found like I had this revolving door of people where I just wasn't finding the talent that was at the level I needed it to be. And I didn't know necessarily the right questions to ask, or the right process or way to go about it to find those good people. And so it took quite a bit of banging around to be able to get to that point. But I think in the Drupal space, we're just seeing the tip of potential of possibilities with what the CMS can do and how far it's extending, and that there's going to be some serious issues in the future if we can't address how do we find good talent, how do we train up and equip good talent. Dave, in his presentation, the two of us have been working together, and we've done this presentation probably, how many times, Dave? 7 or 8 times over the last year. So the first part of it, when we're talking about recruiting, a lot of this is Dave's stuff, and this is a quote that Dries gave in a blog post last January. But the 2 key points there, the scarcity of Drupal talent and Drupal's growth, the demand for Drupal experts continues to be much larger than the supply. It limits the adoption of Drupal by our customers, the growth of our partners, as well as our own ability to hire Drupal talent. So what I wanted to share with you quickly is just some of the things we've been doing at ImageX to try to find really good people. Really, Dave says this well, he says there's no silver bullet. There's no one special way you can go about it. And I'm sure in this room there's probably some great ideas of how you've been able to find talent. But I'd like to share a few. First, I wanted to start off with these concentric circles, because we kind of see now our HR and recruiting process as a bit of a 1 to 5 year goal. And at the inner circle is kind of like that 3 to 6 month hiring goal. And then there's that kind of 1 to 2 year, and then there's the 3 to 5 year. And I'm now looking at my whole recruiting process a little bit like I look at my marketing processes. I'm trying to create a funnel, and I'm starting to develop relationships with people that eventually, when we're at that point, when we're ready to hire, they'll already be there for us, and we can go ahead and have a pool of people that we'd be able to pull from. And that's where we want to get to as an organization, because we're usually in the spot where we're scrambling, trying to find somebody, and then we're making bad decisions that we're getting hurt for on our contracts later. We don't want to be in that spot. So obviously, job boards, that's the first place we look. I don't know what you folks are using, but we've been using like Craigslist, that's been useful, LinkedIn, LinkedIn specific groups, using Drupal.org, Drupal groups, using specialized job sites on the design side, like Fresh Web Jobs, Authentic Web Jobs, sites like that. Anybody else have any sites to mention that have been helpful in that space? Dice? Cool. Yeah. The second thing, presenting and training at conferences and events, that's also been huge for us. As a shop have made a presence in the Vancouver community. I lead the Vancouver Drupal Users Group, and previously before that I'd led the Surrey Drupal Users Group, and we find a lot of our talent will come from those users groups. They'll see your company, they'll see your head shop. We ran the Vancouver Drupal Summit last year. What Dave's done this year with this running the summit and then the camp, it's huge. Developers are like, you guys are the top shop, I want to work for you. And that's really what you want to create. Partners. I mentioned in the last session, Dave and I have been connecting probably for 4 or 5 years, and we also share job, when we find good people. If I'm like, just a few months back, an individual came to us, but we just hired 3 to 4 people. I sent them over to Dave. It's awesome to see. He's here this week. He's been working with, how long has he been working now? A couple weeks. So we tend to share back and forth with each other. And you can develop those kind of partnerships with people locally, and if you have a dispersed team, you can develop those with other shop owners. I mentioned this already, the local community involvement, a really key thing to develop relationships. Having a happy hour or an open house. We ran one recently. We just moved and opened up our new location, and we had tons of people coming in to check us out. One of those individuals we ended up hiring through that process. On campus, this is more on our 3 to 5 year, but what we're trying to do, we've developed a relationship with the University of British Columbia, with their computer science department. We contacted them and we said, would you be interested if we were to come on campus and do some Drupal training for students in the computer science department, would you be willing to host us? And they said, absolutely. You could come in after hours, 5:30 onward, we'll give you a classroom and we'll set you up. So we'd come in, we'd have pizza and pop. We'd fill out a room with 80 people coming out, and many of them had never even heard of Drupal before. 20% of them had actually heard of Drupal, but they came out and we started to do training. And then we'd also make sure we had spots at the tech fair and really try to get a presence on campus so that
we're branding our firm with those students. And when it's coming time to graduation, we're on the top of their list if that's an area of interest for them that they want to go in. Sorry, I backed up there, so I'm just going to go forward. Recruiting agencies, I don't know if you folks use them often, but we typically will use a recruiting agency for a really key role or position. When it's like a sales or marketing director or a key PM role, we've developed a relationship with a local HR firm and developed a retainer situation with them, and we've used them for key roles in our organization. Blogging has been another area that's been really key for us too. I've had people come to me, and I'll see it many times over when they send their cover letter through to us. They'll say, I read your blog post about your company values, and that's the kind of company that I want to work for. And social media being another aspect, we find that just by continually providing value through social media, people are finding us. And the Drupal community is a small community. People from all around, they'll notice you, they'll see your brand, they'll start to say, this company is offering a lot of great stuff back. If you're using, in your blogging efforts, getting onto Drupal Planet and really showing your expertise, the areas of value you're offering to the community, but also who you are. Our Facebook page is where we kind of show a little bit more. We let our hair down a little bit more on our Facebook page, and people can see what our team's like. I found like when I go and present at the university that students wouldn't come up and be like crowding around me afterwards. They'd be crowding around my employees because they want to ask them, what's it like to work at ImageX? And they want to fire all the direct questions. The ones they don't think I'm going to answer honestly, they're asking my people. And so I think as you start to share who you are in social media, both the successes and the failures, people start to see you're real, you're authentic, we like your heart, we like who you guys are and what you're about. And in the converse of that, I do the same thing too. When I'm meeting people at events like this, I'm like, boom, cool, I'm using Card Munch, I'm taking your card, I'm copying it. If you don't use that tool, it's absolutely fantastic. It takes the scan of your card, sends it off to India, it gets typed out by a human, sent through back to you onto your system, connects up with your Google contacts, with your address book, and also sends off a link on LinkedIn to the person you met at that conference or event. So everybody that I'm meeting at these events, I'm card matching those things, sending off a LinkedIn connection, and then I'll do a follow-up afterwards. I'm doing the same thing when I'm meeting people that are potential hires. I'm taking those people, I'm adding them to Twitter lists, potential hires. I've got that hidden list there. I can look at it every day. I watch those people. One guy I hired recently, I watched him for 6 months or so before I made the decision to offer him a job because I really wanted to see how he operates. How does he treat people? What is he continually posting on? And that really helped me to get an idea that this guy would be a good cultural fit with our company. I did it again. I pushed the wrong button, so catch up. Called Card Munch. Yeah, it's owned by LinkedIn. They just purchased them, and so there's a great connection point there. And then the final thing is incentivizing your employees. So about a year ago, I offered my employees, I just said, you know what, guys, if you can help me find the person for this role, I'll give you an iPad. And that really motivated them. And over the next 4 or 5 months, I gave away 3 iPads to different team members for going out and finding employees. I know Dave's been doing the same thing here too at Media Current. So before we move on to retention, those were a few things on the recruiting side, but is there any things that you folks have been doing that you found helpful on the recruiting side? Yeah, he was pretty excited too. He got, like, his first project he got to work on was with his life hero, Leo Laporte, Twit TV. He actually got to help with the design of the homepage and content pages, and he was absolutely ecstatic because he spends 3-4 hours a week listening to Leo Laporte on TV and watching him on his webcasts. So he came out of that pretty amped up as an intern. Good call. Anybody? Other ways that you found helpful in the recruiting process to find good talent? maybe other stuff will come to mind. I know Ben, you talked about the whole screening process and stuff like that, but I'd kind of like to, go ahead. Wow. Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. It's great to just find that little niche that's going to set your company apart and draw on the right kind of people that you're looking for. Good call. So, on the retention side, I don't know if you guys remember just over a year ago when LeBron decided to up and leave the Cavaliers. What kind of reaction happened? I don't know if you saw the YouTube videos of fans in the streets burning his jersey, and just like people were absolutely devastated. And for those of you who are business owners, I'm sure you too have been through those experiences where it's like that Monday morning, getting that email in your inbox that was so unexpected. Or that visit to your office by that employee who was like your superstar, and bam, he drops the news. He's already made the decision. He's taken a role at some downtown firm and he's getting paid $20K more a month. That sucks. It's a horrible, horrible feeling, especially if you've invested a whole bunch of time and energy into somebody that you've been bringing up for a role. And that's happened to me many times over. And so that whole process, similar to Ben as he was sharing about how he kind of came to that wake-up call of what he needed to do differently, there was a number of things that I started to realize I needed to really focus on changing in the way I was leading and running my company. Obviously, replacement of those individuals is unbelievably costly. I was reading an article about a year and a half ago by Robert Meggie of the Great Little Box Company, and he said that every time he has to replace a key position in his company, it costs him somewhere between $50,000 to $100,000. And I was like, what? 50 to 100 grand? Come on, that's ridiculous. But then I started to sit down and think of all the different areas of cost I had when I had to replace a key employee. And sure enough, if I added up the recruitment costs, if I added up what kind of impact that would have on my clients, let's say if they were a PM and all of the projects that they were running, and then the amount of time and energy it would take to bring in that new person, and how much time it would take if you couldn't find somebody for that key role who had Drupal experience, how much time will it take you to bring that person up to that spot? It's very costly. And if you had a growth plan and that key person moves out of your company, if it's a top developer, it's a key designer, or a solid PM or a sales position, it really puts you behind the 8 ball. So keeping your people, absolutely vital. So similar to Ben, again, as I started to do more reading on it, I came across stuff that I was a little bit surprised. For example, this statement: the top 10 reasons people leave their jobs relate to the decision-making processes of management. Again, I was like, what? They're leaving their jobs because of that? Here, I thought they were leaving the jobs because they got offered $20K more from that downtown big name firm. I thought it was a money issue, not the decision-making processes of management. But then I started to listen. Yeah. I started to listen. As I started to listen to people as I was interviewing them and as they were coming in, and I'd hear things like, so why are you thinking of leaving your company? And they'd say, I've been there for 6 months, and every single time I bring up this issue, he's like, yeah, we're gonna do something about that. That's important. Nothing happens. Or every time I have an idea, I bring it to the table, I'm excited about it, I wanna see something happen with it. Nothing happens ever with our ideas. And I hear that from lots of other people. Or management, they're going this direction, and then they're going this direction. Oh wait, knee jerk over here, because this is important. Where are we going? We have no idea where we're going, and it's frustrating. There's no consistency. So as I started to hear those things, I was internalizing them and thinking, yeah, that's pretty key stuff for me. So like Ben, I'm similar in the fact that I actually have to schedule stuff into my life, because if I don't, it's probably not going to happen. It's going to happen when I'm a little too late. It's going to happen when I've just suddenly realized that I've lost this person, and now I'm starting to pay attention to that. So the key thing I found was actually blocking time into my schedule. So I have 5 key leaders in my company. I meet with each of those people half an hour a week, every single week. I've blocked it in with a recurring event with alarms, and they're there at my door every week. At that time, they come show up. Some weeks, I'm going to take them out down to Starbucks, and we're going to sit down for half an hour and chat. Other weeks, I follow a formula. I read it in a book. I thought it sounded a little formulaic, but after I started doing it, it actually was great. It was 10 minutes for you, 10 minutes for me, 10 minutes to talk about where we're going, your goals, the things you set out before you. And in that 10 minutes that they have, they can talk about anything they want to talk to me about. And in the 10 minutes I have, I'm usually talking to them, and in my calendar, I use it as a little Dropbox on the appointment. I'll drop in stuff in there all through the week as I'm going along. And I'll just, if I observe something, I saw maybe something that raised a flag, something that I had a concern about, it's dropping in there. If I saw them do something that I thought was awesome, I'm not going to tell them 6 months later at the review meeting. I'm going to tell them this week. And so starting to put that into place has really been helpful, because I started to see a real difference in those relationships. Secondly, with all my employees now, I'm doing every 4 weeks to 6 weeks, depending whether they're an external contractor or an internal developer or designer. And that's also beginning to help, because I was starting to find that their relationships were good with their direct supervisor, but I was really out of touch with them. And 6 months for a review meeting is just not enough. And then there's the other periodic things that you're doing together, but it wasn't enough. So we're running low on time here. I think we're at the 10:02 mark, Ben. So I mean, if we don't have time to go through the rest of these slides, that's not a problem. But stop me if there's anything you want to talk about as we're going along here. Secondly, keeping the bar high. What I was starting to find with developers is that a lot of guys are really attracted to a firm that has somebody who's better than them. And they just want to be able to learn, and they want to be able to grow. And if my top guys, if I don't hang on to them and they slip out the door on me, I don't have that magnetic attraction point anymore. And so keeping those guys there is really vital to having me bring in these new developers, because they want that learning environment. They want to be able to have that senior dev that they can be under. That's a huge part of the draw of my organization. And the second thing is that sometimes those top guys, they may be awesome, they may be skilled, but if those guys start developing an attitude, that spreads so fast, it's not funny. And I found that for a while, I'd be like, but I can't do anything about it because it's so important to me. And yet it was affecting the attitudes of so many people in my company. And so I realized I had to get a lot tougher on those issues. I need to be sitting down with that individual and saying, here's what I need to address with you, and here's what I need to see change. And if I don't see that changed, you are not going to be able to continue on with us. And I like you, but this isn't going to work. And if they weren't able to change their attitude in that regard, no problem, I will help you find another job. But this is not the spot for you. And to have everybody on the same page, going in the same direction all together, just makes such a difference. You know what that feeling is like when you're walking into a meeting and you just feel like someone's undermining you and where you're going and what you're doing? If you can't get that out of the way, it will build, it will grow, and you have to address it head on. Thirdly, keeping them challenged. I find developers get bored really fast. Maintenance is a tough one. If you got maintenance projects and it's ongoing, or one guy's stuck on a long-term project and it's a whole year and you just go and go and go on the same things, that's tough for them. How do you keep it interesting? You can't just like go to your developers, okay, I'll only get big name clients for you, and I'll only get super fun, interesting projects for you. It just doesn't work that way, right? But what can you do to help make your environment more interesting? I found things like building in more community time into their schedule. We've decided and made a decision. 80% of your time is billable, 20% of your time is unbillable. And so that 20% of your time, there's going to be projects, internal projects and community projects that we're starting on together. And they look forward to working on those things. If we're going through a stint and we have to go beyond that 80%, they'll start talking to me after a while. They'll be telling me in my weekly one-on-ones, when are we going to be getting back to more community time? Because they love the innovative process of doing stuff together. I have heard about Google and how they were doing these FedEx days where they would start at 10 in the morning one day, and they'd say to the entire team, you guys can work on anything you want. At 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, you show us what you built. So you can choose. I did that with my team, and it was an awesome day, and it inspired them to start a couple of new things that they began developing in terms of modules, and they took off with that. It was scary too, because it's like, that's a big time burn rate when you take your entire company and you're sticking them there and you're like, wow, $5,000 have gone today. I hope this goes somewhere good. But definitely those things pay off. And as Ben said, the vision, the strategy, direction is huge. For us, we've been trying to every year focus at that beginning of the year to set the direction for the year, to sit down as a team, to look at our strategy again and begin to set goals. And not like 5 years out, because nobody can think that far out, but like, what are we going to do for the next 3 months?